The election is over. And I don't know
God.
about a lot of you, but I am very happy it is over. The economy was stuck in an air pocket. You can see in earnings announcements, companies are saying consumers are pulling back. You could see that companies weren't making capital investments, weren't buying inventory. Housing was in the toilet for transactions. There's a big, just almost relief rally now that the President-elect Trump is been voted in, both with electoral and the popular vote. I'm just curious now, what happens? Yeah. Does the economy just come back, right? I mean, just think about when the casino company, I think it was yesterday, the day before, said the VIPs aren't showing up, right? We heard from different Darden restaurants and all these other food chains that consumers aren't buying cheap food, right, at restaurants. So I'm just curious, where do we go from here? We got the three amigos here. Again, we pretend to be political analysis, but we are basically real estate guys. So we'll try to stay in real estate. Matt, we'll go to you first. What do you think happens to housing? Do we get more listings? Do we get more offers? What goes on?
I have no idea. And the reason for that is that I think that there's been, we would ask, because we have two houses on the market. We would ask them like, well, we're not really ready to do anything right now. Okay, what are you waiting for? Well, we're kind of waiting to see how the election pans out and kind of what goes from there.
So you were hearing that?
We were literally hearing that. We were hearing that from probably, I'd say 60% of buyers.
Okay.
They were really doing their fact finding, really doing their looking, their searching, hey, do I even like this thing? Then we'll see how everything pans out. Now we'll see if any of them circle back. Because what we didn't ask was, does it matter who wins to you? We didn't ask that question. It was just all around the election, but we have no idea what it was based on or how they win. They just felt like, I feel like what we were getting as an answer was, they just felt like at least a direction was picked.
Yeah, right? No, I've been hearing that. I talked to mortgage and agents and all week, and I was hearing that probably 80% of the time. And you're right. I never really dug in and said, like, does the winner matter? Right. I don't think it does. To your point, I think it's directional. The sad fact, at least based on one day's, at least a couple of hours, the market's only been up for a couple of hours. Mortgage rates are going to get much worse today.
Yes.
The 10-year note's up 15 basis points. So the mortgages will be up, something. So waiting could have cost people, at least payment, right? Could have cost them some money. Dion, what do you think?
So really, I have three things. The first is I had a course call last night, and there was a couple of people who had units available, right? So we did like a look at their listing to figure out why it's been a couple of weeks. Is it rented too high? Is the listing not good? And we looked, and one listing could use a couple of tweaks right out of the lumberjack landlord's course. Some things that they actually said, yeah, from the course, these are things I need to change, but it's going through a property manager. And it really seemed like people were on pause for the election this month.
Just
not making
everywhere.
Decisions.
Yeah.
Right. And so, in an example, so that's the first thing is if you have units available right now, I don't think I would make any price adjustments or anything for a few more weeks. Let that, now the election is done, people will either take action or not, but at least they're not on pause waiting for that event. Like my nephew specifically had this sentence come out of his mouth. He's very on the right, and he said, if he wins, I'm going to buy my next rental. He owns the house he lives in, and he owns a rental, and he's buying his next one, right? So I've got two nephews now that they both own rentals, and he's going to buy his next one. And he goes, and if she wins, I won't be able to. Like, it was in his head, he was just, absolutely can't if she wins. Don't know why. And I think there are people that are like that on either side.
Sure.
This is the action I'm taking. If my side wins, I can do this. If the other side wins, I just lose. So that's the second thing. And the third thing is me personally. So I ran a business for the decade before I retired, and it was, it's higher education, CDL training. So it was in transportation, whether it was going to grow or shrink, whether there was going to be funding for training. And we constantly had to have a plan if we had a Republican or Democrat in office, state, county, country, right? And we'd have a plan for either one. We wouldn't go, okay, if the other side of us wins, we just shut down. It was if this side wins, here's our plan. So for me, In the last 6 months, I really haven't made predictions. It's not my thing. I don't like to go, if rates do this, then I will. There's no if thens in me. It's like what's happening now. I'm always doing the same thing. So I had a plan if she won, and I have a plan if he won. And my plan with him winning is I now don't have to raise rents on my tenants.
Because rent
We're
control.
less likely to have nationwide rent control. They were talking that 5% cap. So I was going to absolutely have to go binder strategy everybody again. Dang, I'd make thousands of dollars more a month. And then I'd have a forced 5% minimum, like whatever the cap is, if they do plus inflation or whatever, every single year. So I get to leave my tenants alone now. And so that's been the impact for me. I think if there's less regulations on building, remember one of the first executive orders he did last time, based on my memory, so fact check it, was some rule where if you make a new law, 2 laws have to go away. There was some reduction in regulations executive order. It's what I remember.
Yeah.
Maybe I heard somebody talking about it. I don't know.
Yeah, no idea.
But,
I don't remember that, but it's possible.
So we talk often about how the solution to the housing problem is more builds. Right? And so if we could build more, there is a short-term impact on new builds that also benefits me. New builds are expensive, even with less regulations, right? You have impact fees, connection fees, permits, and all these kind of things. So when a new build goes in, I did a live stream a couple of weeks ago on, I want to invest right next to the large apartment complexes that are being built because of the money it took to build it, that my 30-year-old house rental next door to it, rents will go up naturally by being pushed up by that place, not lowering their rents. They'll do concessions, but they'll leave the units vacant before they lower rents because they have to have that NOI where the lender wants it in a few years. So if there's less regulations, there will be builds that in the short term will drive my rents up without me having to raise rents on my tenants, without me having to binder strategy. I'm excited. I was excited either way. I had a plan either one where I would benefit, and that's what I was hoping more people would do. And the last thing I want to say before we get off of politics is the one person I know who's throwing the biggest fit about the way that it went. Their ballot is sitting on their countertop. And I was
They
like,
didn't even
vote. I
vote.
think you would have done something with that.
Wow, that's interesting. So when I think about housing, again, I think about the components, right? So first off, I don't think it's unfair to say that housing, both existing home sales and new home sales, are bought with debt, mortgages. At least as of this morning, it could just be a snap decision. It may reverse. It's such a violent move. Rates got more expensive today. Rates got more expensive. The 10-year is up by some accounts 15, 16 basis points. The big question I have is, will the spread come in or will it get fatter? We could have a double whammy, right? It is possible to think about the underlying 10-year going up and the spread, which is the 10-year to the mortgage rates, getting fatter, or you could think about it coming in. That's the thing I'm thinking about right now is, does the lending market, does banking feel more confident? I don't know, right? Or are they afraid of inflation? Or are they afraid of a weakening labor market? I don't know. But we've got to watch both those. Hey, Dion.
So you're the econ guy, and I'm the guy who watches the econ guy. So here's my interpretation of what I have learned from all of the Zuber that I have taken in the last several years, right? I watch your update every day. We've interacted every week. When we have a split government, like Republican House, Democrat Senate, whatever way it went, president, whatever, there's less likelihood of sweeping changes.
Correct.
So the lenders can compress the margin on the mortgage rates to the Fed rate.
Possibly.
It's looking like there was kind of a red wave. And so we have a little more, it doesn't matter if it was blue or red, doesn't matter which side, but it's leaning one side to where changes could happen, which could cause uneasiness with lenders, which could make them, what's the word?
Yeah.
Uncompress the margin.
Just nervous. I mean, that's what lenders do. They add margin when they're concerned. I mean, it's very simple. So, I mean, this is a legitimate concern, right? And again, one of the things you should know about lenders, and I've been borrowing money from different banks for 20 years. And if they don't want to lend, they might say, yes, we'll take your application, but they won't lend. They will just raise rates and make it uncomfortably. So this is a legit concern. Now, again, the thing about lenders is it's very snap. They could get nervous today. They could take the you know, the gap from 265 to 310. They could do that in a week if they wanted to.
Mm-hmm.
But if you fast forward, you get past inauguration and nothing crazy wild happens, that could come in just as quickly. And again, I'm not saying it will because I have no idea. I'm just nervous about the second order effect, right? You take the underlying asset, the 10-year, it goes up 15 basis points. You get a lending environment that's also nervous, and they add on 15 basis points. That's a quarter, right? And you know, as I said, opening, housing is bought on debt. So that's my first concern when I think about housing. As a home buyer, as a first-time home buyer, sucks.
Mhm.
As an investor, I don't freaking care. As long as I'm not selling, I don't care what the cost of capital is. It could be 10% for all I care, because I only write deals that make sense today. Matt, I know you have 2 listings. Are you just going to wait it out? Are you going to take it off the market? What are you thinking?
So we got one under contract.
Oh, good for you.
Yeah, and it was a 3% price reduction. So
Reasonable.
we priced properly. We thought we priced properly. And so one's under, the other one's not under yet. But I think that we were so close. I was, we had talked, we just said, I'm not changing anything around the election.
Right.
I was like, my burn there is $600 a month. I was
Yeah.
like, I'm certainly not taking a 5 or a 10K hit.
When does winter really kick in for you?
Oh, it's kind of here. We've already had frost. So we've had temperatures in the 20s at night.
Goodness. Wow.
But real winter, if you're a New Englander, really doesn't kick in till usually right around December. It usually kicks in right around there. And then you're talking about pretty much every day being in the 30s. And then at night you're in the teens and 20s until you start to see some shift in the weather. But you know, what I look at is I don't believe it's going to be fat margin.
Mm-hmm.
I believe it's going to be obese margins. I'm thinking 3.25, 350, these massive margins with the banks. Yeah. I mean, because I've called all of them. I told them that I need it to win your dollar. That was the first thing. I was like, that's the only way it's going to slow things down.
Yeah.
Is if we get these, 8% rates, because we all know that everybody goes apoplectic. And it was really interesting.
Yeah, 8% could happen. I got to tell you.
It could.
Yeah.
And here's the thing. I don't need it to happen for 6 months. If it happens for 2, that is going to make this plane absolutely drop out of the sky. Mm-hmm. And so I was watching Uneducated Economists, and Simon, had done something on the article on the, that this is mirroring 07 and all that silliness. What's really interesting is that, and we've talked about this in the past, new construction, they have the luxury of buying down the rate and a lot of times holding the paper. Yeah, and they're able to get to 4.99, right?
That's the magic number.
Right. Yep. That's the magic number where everybody's buying that $800,000 new home versus the $500,000 existing home, right? Yep. But now they're not going to be able to buy sub 5. They're going to be lucky to buy sub 6. And now if they're in the 6s and you're still talking about their crazy premium for new, now that market starts to get really affected along with the median housing market. And the biggest thing that I've seen in this market is still no move up buyer. We're still showing our product. They're dead. We're still showing our product to first time home buyers that are complete and total clueless.
They're just first time home buyers. They're just,
well, the problem is that they often have agents that have no experience. This is what we've experienced. So it's the system. It's not specifically the buyer. Mm-hmm. The buyer has no clue, but then because they have an idiot agent, they're just like validated. Oh yeah, totally. Yeah. I wouldn't buy that house from the backsplash either. With that backsplash, I would definitely not buy that house. Like we literally got a list from one person and the entire list, I said to my broker, I go, get them to write an offer, get them to write it for 10,000 less and I'll do it all because it's literally $3,000 to $4,000 worth of work done. Yeah. And so that's where I think the market's going to go. So I believe, and let's face it, nobody in the existing administration wants to help the new administration. Yeah. I really do believe that they might be lame duck, but Joe's never going to run for any level of office again. Mm-mm. And Kamala would be lucky to get sponsored by her local Wendy's.
Yeah.
So I think the biggest challenge for them is going to be what they're going to do in this lame duck 8 weeks left.
Again, I want to go back to your point. 8% mortgage rate is a legit concern. I thought about this morning.
Yeah, very much so.
And if you want to know what 8% mortgage rates does to housing, you can go back and check what it did last time. It was about a year ago, maybe 15 months ago. It's not good.
Yeah, no,
It's
no.
not good.
That's when we went through the toughest part of the cycle.
Yeah, that's where you actually had some price sensitivity.
Yes.
Right. If you go back, you can actually directly tie 8%
Yep.
mortgage rates with like a 2 or 3% decline in price.
Absolutely. Shocking. Never would have imagined that.
Yeah, shocking. It's all about payment. Shocking. Shocking. Well, the next thing I think we have to talk about, at least in housing, at least definitely for new construction, is labor.
Yeah.
Right. I don't know the stats. I've read lots of different articles about the labor market. And if we do go on a mass deportation, if we do something greater than just the criminals, there is a chance that the labor market shrinks for new construction. And also, equally important is the wave of resources is going to stop. The wave of illegal immigration is going to stop if it hasn't already. So there'll be no new supply. So again, labor is a decent component in housing, and I have no idea, but less labor seems inflationary to me. What do you think, Dion?
Well, I think it's going to be inflationary, and I'm going to try to be, I don't know, sensitive or non-political
Why?
on this. So I grew up in Southern California, right? I was the little white kid working in the onion fields with a bunch of people who used to beat me up because I was the white kid, not where I was supposed to be. And I see a lot of people talking about it's inflationary to remove the workforce by taking out all the illegal immigrants. What are we then doing? We're stopping what I consider to be a slave labor force. People say, since they're illegal immigrants, we can pay them significantly less than minimum wage. We can not do vacation. We can not do pension. We can not pay taxes on their earned income on the employer side. Like all these laws are being broken. Everybody's like, well, it's okay if it makes housing cheap or makes my food cheaper. No, how about we take Americans who are finally hearing that college might not be the only way to go. And they can go, wow, if I learn a trade like this, HVAC or construction or cement for foundation, and I be part of the solution to get these houses in place, and I make a wage, it doesn't mean the housing prices come down. It means less regulations mean more builds can happen, but they're going to pay a livable wage because these are actually going to be citizens who can call when they don't get overtime or they don't get vacation or they don't get sick days or all these things that can happen that, right, you don't have an illegal immigrant union, but you do have the what do they call it, the federal regulations on employment. There's probably a fancy term for it, that kicks in for citizens. So now I don't think we're going to have a shortage of labor. We're going to have
different. It's inflationary.
We're going to have builders that have to actually pay citizens to do the work. I don't see the negative. I also don't see it making housing prices come down anytime soon until we develop that workforce of people, right? So when I ran the CDL school, we ran a program for about a year. We spent about 70 grand to set the program up, and it made about 70 grand, and then we shut it down. And it was in the Northwest, you can get an insulation job, putting insulation in houses. Starts at about $30 to $40 an hour, depending on if you have any background in construction, right? If they have to teach you what a hammer is, you're starting at $30 an hour. If you can come out of this training with the idea of you can go put insulation in. This was before 2020, before all of the sudden wages increased. Nobody wanted to do it. Everybody was like, no, I'm going to go sit in college for 4 years and I'm going to go get a $15 an hour office job and be totally fine.
Yeah.
So we have to educate people that you can make money with your hands. And that
I think this is a big deal. I mean, Anna Kelly and I talked about this a lot yesterday. You know, this AI wave is going to really flip the script from white collar to blue collar, right?
Very much.
We're all in Gen X, and you know, right or wrong or indifferent, we were, at least I was told, go to school, get a good job, or you're a freaking loser.
Heard that a couple times.
Yeah, well, I'll just leave that there. But I really do. I'm really encouraged by Gen Z. You know, Gen Z is that first generation who clearly understands that $100,000, $200,000 in student debt is stupid for a stupid degree.
Yep.
They're now seeing articles by like the Wall Street Journal and whatnot. You know, your path to 100 grand in 4 years. You know, basically learning a trade. I think AI is going to force even more trades as more white collar jobs go bye-bye.
Yep.
I think it's all net positive, but to be clear, it is also all net inflationary. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying inflation's a feature, not a bug. One of the results of of this labor pool changing or evolving, or the mix. Higher wages are an input cost. You add on margin, prices go up. So then the last thing I think about housing, right? So we have debt, labor, we also have stuff. And, I don't know the percentage, but I'm going to wild ass guess it here. 50% of the stuff that goes into a brand new home is imported. I'm just guessing from somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously one of the talks, coming from Trump for the last year or so is, I'm going to tariff everything that, comes from a foreign entity 100% or 60% or whatever number he threw out. Now, I don't believe that for a minute.
Nope.
But we got to at least consider the possibility that some of the goods that are coming in will have tariffs, and tariffs will add cost and, again, inflationary. So, Matt, what do you think?
Yes. And us and Dion all having had careers, whether Dion likes to admit it or not, he was still a salesperson.
Yeah.
And
100%.
yeah, 1,000%. Right. So surprisingly, we would never walk in the door and give them our best offer. Shocking, right?
Shocking.
And so I believe that, of course, tariffs are coming, but I don't believe what Trump's economic plan is free trade. It is fair trade. And there's a difference between the two. And so if you're bilking us for a 30 and 40% uplift in cost to sell whatever we're selling overseas, then expect that whatever you're sending here, we're going to do exactly the same thing. And I think that people don't understand that that's how you get out of the hole that we're in very, very quickly, because they either reciprocate and drop, and then we start selling a whole lot more stuff overseas, or it's a game of chicken and they see who can last the longest. And since we're the world reserve currency and we have the money printer, we can spend the longest. We can go the longest.
I like our chances. Our chances.
Let's go, guys. And the other thing to that too is, with Europe depending on our natural gas, because they listened to all the idiots over there that said, oh no, all green. We got to go all green. And guess what? Then Russia stuck it to them. And so now we're helping that process out. But the reason that that's going to increase and get bigger and better is that we're not going to have the personal pressures of having to fill. You guys don't have this issue, but we have this issue here with filling oil tanks for the wintertime for heating. Do you realize that a typical oil tank here is about 300 gallons? They're between 275 and 300 gallons. Do you know that it costs about $1,200 to fill your oil tank? Do you know that you fill it typically at least twice a year and sometimes 3 times a year?
Ooh, wow.
That is $2,400 to $3,600 when you're at $4 a gallon. Well,
what was it like 2019? I don't have context.
It was 2019. It was low mid twos.
So it's a double roughly.
It's close to, it's probably 60% higher, 60% higher or so.
Another example of inflation. Yeah.
Right. And so when, I fully expect that it's going to be drill, baby, drill, and that a lot of land's going to be open, and that we're going to actually be able to fix our strategic reserve issue. And we're going to become a much larger exporter of energy. Then all of those things will absolutely impact everyone's bottom line, because I can tell you, with as little as I drive, my gas tank is still $75 to fill. And it used to be about 43. And so for the families that commute more and spend more time bringing their kids to school and all of that other stuff, you're talking about an extra $200 a month, maybe $250 a month in your pocket. So from a financial perspective, that's what's going to be, getting those exports going, getting a higher premium. If people want to get fair with us, well, I'm sure that he's a pretty good negotiator and he'll get fair with them. So I think the idea of, tariff, and it's really a tax and it's going to blow up the economy. If you only do that, then that's true. But just like anything, you can break any model by doing one thing and being off 1% and then the direction that you're taking. That's where there have to be ebbs and flows to this. And that's where I'm most excited is I think that we're going to get ripped off less by other countries and other continents by goods, and get our American goods sold more.
Yeah. My biggest concern, and I ran through this with Anna yesterday, I'll run it through with you guys, is
Yeah.
I think the next 2 years are going to be uncomfortable.
Yep.
Why do I mean that?
Sure.
Well, again, as we open this conversation, we talked about rates being higher.
Mhm.
Rates being higher, clearly, real estate is highly levered to the rate market. Higher rates, lower transactions, impacts, lots and lots of people. However, if you step back and look at the next second order derivative, you have all these small and medium-sized businesses who probably have levered up their balance sheet when rates are 2 or 3%. And now they're going to be coming into a 7, 8, 9%. I think there's going to be a lot of pain. We're talking bankruptcies,
Yep.
debt write-downs.
Yep.
I think one of the saddest things that I'm having PTSD about, and again, this could clearly be PTSD because it was in 81, I believe, where my old man was unemployed for 10 months.
Yeah.
I think the duration of somebody being on unemployment is going to be significantly longer than it's been the last decade or so.
I think back when that was the case, Mike, and you can correct me if I'm wrong if you've done the research.
Yep.
I believe that for every $8,000 a year every $6,000 a year you made back then, it took you a month to find a job.
Yeah, it was.
And so if you made $50,000 back then, you could be looking for close to a year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
No, it was. And that's really my fear. Because again, we've been through so much as an economy.
Yeah.
We've been through 9% inflation. We've had this huge asset inflation, the have and have nots, the paycheck to paycheck. It is brutal out there.
Yeah.
And I think as the economy changes and maybe goes from white collar, more blue collar, as manufacturing comes home, again, as a lot of the right things happen, there is some pain that some people will unfortunately go through. And, as somebody who lived through that we almost lost our house. We packed up, we were moving in with grandparents in Michigan. It was no joy, no bueno. I fear that might be coming to lots of people, unfortunately. Dion?
So there's a couple things with tariffs. Right, having worked in transportation, I kind of understand a part of this. Mm-hmm. I own 2% of a headphones company called Meters, and it sells through. It's like Amazon Europe, and then there's a different one for China. Right, and we're struggling to get into US. What's that?
Temu.
Yeah, so it's like on 3 different platforms: Walmart Mexico, but not Walmart US. So it's got all these things going on. Here's the point of tariffs: it is not China charges us tariffs, so we're going to charge tariffs unless they remove theirs. The idea is, I'll take a shirt company. Just hypothetically, you have a shirt company that can make shirts, and they go, well, we can actually go to China and have a sweatshop. Right? There's a term. That's why the term came out. Not pay livable wages, have the shirts made, have them shipped to the U.S. super cheap. So the idea was tariffs on imported goods would encourage United States companies to make United States factories. And everybody's like, well, these tariffs are going to cause inflation because I'd rather have the shirt made in a sweatshop. I don't care what the living conditions are of those people, as long as my shirt's cheap. But if you put a tariff on, it's going to make my shirt cost more. And if Trump wants this, it's horrible. It's the end of the world. It's everything's going to suck. But I'm okay with the Google it because this is a fact. 100% tariff on EVs that Biden put in place when it was a good thing because their side was doing it. So tariffs are used as a motivation on what you want your employers to do. So if you have this 2 years where we do start putting tariffs on more things that were okay when Biden did it, but terrible when Trump does it, and now we have them in there. When the companies are forced to bring their employment, their factories into the US to not have the tariffs, yes, price might be more, but how many more Americans are employed at those factories?
No, I agree with all of that. I just know the next 2 years, it's not smooth. You don't go from point A to point B in a straight line. It doesn't happen tomorrow.
Well, you can't build a factory in a day.
No.
Right. So it's investment. But the cool thing about it is, and again, jury's out. What do they do with the next 2 years if they own everything? If it is all red, what do they do for the next 2 years? That's what has to be seen.
All right. We will close on that question. I've never thought about this. So we'll go to you first, Matt, since you brought it up. Yeah. Let's just wave a magic wand. It's a clean sweep red. if you were in power or in the room, what would be 2 things that you think should be done?
I think if you get the tariffs in place quickly, and I think if you reduce regulation, I think those are the 2 most important things, because one of the highest costs of building is regulation. Before I move a spoonful of dirt, it's $100,000 on a typical property, right?
Crazy.
So reduce that level, reduce that, have something be there where there's some sort of something, put something in place there where that's eliminated or has a stay or is gifted back if it's like affordable housing or if it's workforce housing. Like that's the way to do that piece. And then the other piece is making sure that you have fair trade, not free trade, recognizing that that has to happen very, very quickly. I think you have 60 days, depending on what the newest problem is on January 1. I think you have 60 days to figure out, hey, these are the things that we can do day 1 that are going to move the needle right away, because I think we have to get into the pain quickly. We have to get into it quickly so we can get out of it quickly. The problem is we find ourselves where we are because everybody wanted to try to avoid the pain. So now, good. We've all got to take our medicine. That means some higher taxes, even though he says lower taxes, it's going to show up somewhere, right? Whether it's inflationary taxes or whatever. I'm game for it. So long as they show me that they're doing 3, 4, or 5 things, they're going to vastly impact people's lives in a 24-month cycle.
I like it. Dion, you got a thought on a couple of things?
I do, and we're on your channel, so I'm going to try to keep it as non-political as possible.
Yes, please.
On my channel, I will just be blunt. So the first thing is, if we have more Republican control, we're going to have a stronger border, which means a lot of border jobs instead of more IRS jobs. And so I think that's going to be a shift for people who want to do that. And that's north and south. So if you want to work on the Canadian border, you want to work on the Mexican border. The second thing is, I think even though there is profit in war, I think Taiwan is a lot safer.
Oh,
the fear of Trump taking action is so much more than Biden doing anything, that Taiwan is now safer. And I think we have until January for Putin to go, maybe I should stop effing around in this little country called Ukraine and leave it alone a bit. I'm not sure what's going to happen there, because it didn't happen the whole time we had Trump in office. And now we've got not only Trump in office, but if whichever one it was that flipped, Senate or House, because I don't pay attention to politics that much to know.
Both.
One of them switched, right? So one was already, one is switched.
Mm-hmm.
The idea to take action against that, so less wars, stronger border, those are the impacts I see from it being one-sided.
Yeah. So I'll give you a couple. It's my channel, so I think I have 3. So first, foremost, the Ukraine war ends. Right? It just ends. Negotiation, whatever. We're not sending hundreds of billions of dollars every month, seemingly, or week, or whatever. It just stops. Ukraine war ends. I think the borders are no-brainer, so I won't even go there. I actually want to go to kind of the other people that came along with Trump in this election. I think Kennedy, make America healthy again. I think there's a lot of things that he says that are freaking batshit crazy, but there's also some things that he says is absolutely right on.
Yep.
So, I look forward to seeing, this simple thing, making food in school healthy. Taking, I don't know if this is still true. It was certainly true years ago when I read the statistics. Do you guys know the most often bought thing on food stamps?
Cigarettes, probably.
Cigarettes? Candy?
Soda.
Yeah.
Okay.
Soda.
It was something unhealthy.
It's unhealthy, right? So I look forward to seeing just some common sense things around making America healthy. I think that's a wonderful idea. So I look forward to that. I look forward to Elon Musk, going in and I doubt he can pull a Twitter and lay off 70%. But shoot, if he lays off 7%, we all know the government's inefficient. I mean, that shouldn't shock anyone. The government has been the largest contributor to our economy for a while, and it shouldn't be. Correct. We could unlock a lot of resources for the private sector. So I think, Trump's the negotiator. He goes, takes care of Ukraine. You unlock Kennedy to go, F with the big, just if you could take big pharma off TV, game changing. Sorry, guys, you can't, advertise during the Super Bowl your ED drug or your whatever, your Olympic or whatever the hell these things are. I mean, there could be some big changes that happen because of this victory that will help for decades to come. So I'm encouraged by what might come of all of this.
Elon getting that role and being put into the administration.
Woo.
And looking to, holy cow.
Yeah. If I was a government employee who didn't do very much, I would be a little bit nervous.
Well, here's the thing, right? Like we all heard how, within 30 days of him buying Twitter, how Twitter was going to go belly up and he wasn't going to be a billionaire anymore.
Dude, I'm in the Valley. I had people that worked there that were impacted. It's like, oh, there's no way he could do this on that skeleton crew.
Yeah.
My ass.
Yeah. Guess what, jackass? He's crushing it with this.
Yeah.
And he's still able to. Now there's that transition where he lost 70% of the employees.
Mm-hmm.
And there's, okay, now we have to set up new systems and processes to manage that. And now we have to focus on where we want growth. And so hopefully the same thing happens with the government, because the government spends ass loads of money. Yeah. They just spend it horribly. And exactly. I think that I think he's the first guy that could actually go in there and affect both levers. He can affect revenue and he can affect expenses. And I think that would be an absolute game changer to actually have somebody in charge of that.
Yeah, I love all of this. At the end of the day, folks, you got to remember we're all Americans. We all want a better future for us and our families and our households. Let's see where this goes. Matt, where can people find you?
Lumberjack Landlord on YouTube and Instagram. Live streams are 9 p.m. on Thursday night. So tomorrow we'll have obviously a lot to talk about.
Very, very cool. And Dion, where can people find you?
You can find me on YouTube, Dion Talk Financial Freedom, where I want people to remember that we all have friends or maybe family who wanted open borders, men and women's sports, and to unalive as many babies as possible.
Stop
I
it.
feel bad for them if they didn't get what they wanted.
Stop. Jeez, why do you have to go there at the end?
I did it with the name of my channel so they know to unsubscribe from me.
Be a gracious winner. Man. Stop. Bye.